Welcome to episode 53 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, a TV series, an anime, manga, comic book, audio show, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and we discuss it. My name is Melissa. It's very
Sorry.
exciting each and every week. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I'm joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
That's me. How's it
It is
going?
you.
Yeah.
I'm good. How are you this morning, Kyle?
I am doing well. I think I screwed up here already, and the social media thing. Well, no, it's not. Let me go back and fix that. And in the meantime, let's carry on the podcast. It's our social media pop-ups. We're not in the right spot, so I don't have those today.
So I'm you and you're me?
It's just that they're not showing up. No one knows who we are, despite us saying our names. It's going to be impossible for them, even though they heard our names, to figure out who's who.
Oh.
How's it going, Melissa?
I'm good. You took a couple minutes to set up the technical side of things this morning, and I used that time to shop for Fanny Packs.
Because that's what one should do with their time if they have
I decided
extra time.
I wanted one. They're back in fashion. You can sincerely embrace them now. They're not just an ironic thing. And as a doughy Midwestern aunt, if anybody can rock a fanny pack, I think it's me.
There you go.
So it's about time I get one right and fresh for summer.
Sounds good. I was gonna try and make some segue about the ignorance of not having a fanny pack and the virtue of ignorance. There with that, because what are we talking about this week, Melissa?
We are talking about the film Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, is a little subtitle there.
There you go.
This is a film directed by Alejandro Iñárritu, and this came out in 2014.
You pronounced that way better than I would have. I'm terrible with names, as everyone should know by now. But yeah, Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. It's to me, it's an awkward subtitle because they don't do the like Birdman : blah 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 or whatever it is. It's literally
optional.
Birdman or and then in
Take your pick.
parentheses. Yeah, so when you're like looking for this film on like Wikipedia or just different websites and stuff like that, sometimes it's under Birdman, sometimes it's as Birdman or, and that's it. And it's just like, what? How is it? Why would you put that in there? That's not you. Don't even need that.
It's got precedence. There's the Shakespeare play Twelfth Night, or what you will.
Sure, yeah. There you go. We watched Birdman this week. For those of you guys who have not seen it, let's do a little bit of a synopsis, and we can give our general impressions on this thing.
This is a movie where Michael Keaton is playing, much like him in his real life, an actor that used to be a superhero in this huge blockbuster superhero movie franchise. And he stepped away from that. He didn't agree to do, Birdman 4. And he's been trying to be a serious actor. And he is in the middle of trying to write, produce, direct, and star in a Broadway drama play. Not a musical, a straight play. And the movie follows him trying to get this play off the ground and dealing with this, like, past career sort of still looming over him. Like when he goes out in public, people are like, do I know you? Oh, you were Birdman, weren't you? I loved Birdman.
Birdman was fantastic 10 years ago.
So it's about art. It's about power, your past life coming back to get you. It's about understanding others. There's a lot of subplots about his fellow actors, and his daughter works as his daughter works as his personal assistant, and it's this neat little, like, a straight drama, but it's got this kind of fantastical element to him where he fantasizes about being Birdman, about doing what Birdman can do and flying around the city.
Yeah, there's this magical realism to it.
Yes.
Things that shouldn't be happening are happening, but they're happening in the real world. Like, this is not a fantasy world. And so it's weird to see. We don't know exactly if that's really how it happened. Not in like a, oh, this is trippy and it's gonna be a mindfuck way, but just like stuff that is happening is often representations of things that he's thinking or things that he's feeling and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily actually what happened, but it's a metaphor or a representation of that, which is neat. Which that sounds all artsy-fartsy and stuff like that.
It is. I don't remember if this movie, I forgot to look up if this actually won anything, but I know this was like a big critical darling, and I know it was nominated for a lot of awards. At least.
Their Wikipedia page is huge. Critical response.
There's a lot to say about this movie.
Yeah, accolades. Let's see. At the 87th Academy Awards, Birdman won 4 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Cinematography. Michael Keaton was nominated for Best Actor. Edward Norton and Emma Stone were nominated in Best Supporting Acting categories, and it also received nominations for Sound Editing and Sound Mixing.
Okay. I've got my brother's Blu-ray copy here. This must have been released before the awards because it doesn't say like Best Picture Award winner here on the box.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if it actually took anything home or not.
The other little accolade sentence thing it says here is Keaton received his first Golden Globe Award, winning for Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy at the 72nd Golden Globe Awards. The film also won the Golden Globe Award for Best Screenplay. So there you go. It did win a lot of stuff.
It's great. This was a movie I saw in theaters. I think I rented once just after it came out on home video, but I hadn't seen since then, and it was a movie that stuck with me. And last week I pitched you a series of original and unconventional superhero films, which I feel like this kind of counts as, and you told me you'd never seen it before, so I'm curious what your thoughts were.
This didn't make it on my radar when it first came out. I don't really know why. Maybe I had my head down in something else. But yeah, it never really caught my attention until after, and it was like a year or two after, and it's like, wait, what? You haven't seen this film? Why? Where were you? And I was just like, I don't know, dude. So it's been on my list of I should probably watch that film at some point. Then you pitch it, so I was like, now is my chance. Let's do it. And so that's what we did. We watched Birdman, and I loved it.
Good, I'm glad.
I thought this was fantastic.
It's so entertaining.
Not necessarily related, but I happened to watch an episode of Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. Also this weekend, I watched the first episode of that. Oh, what a good double feature! has nothing to do with this, but I thought it was funny that they're both named Birdman. So yeah. Let's dive into a little bit of housekeeping for a second here, and then we will get into spoilers. Last week, what did we cover last week, Melissa?
Last week, we covered Spencer and Locke.
Yeah. Spencer and Locke was a cool little graphic novel that the concept is basically, what if Calvin and Hobbes from the comics grew up to become hard-boiled detectives. And so it is a crime story. It's a noir detective story, but it's all based off of characters that you know from Calvin and Hobbes. And it was a lot of fun. So we recommend you go check out that comic book and also check out our episode on that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just did that. We've released some pretty rad episodes of The Captain's Log recently. I think by the time this is released, you can listen to our episode just talking for like 45 minutes straight about the new Disney Plus streaming service.
Oh yeah, it was a little bit more than 45 minutes straight. It was like an hour and a half.
Oh,
But yeah, we did that. We also recently released a Patreon exclusive episode of the Whatnauts review show of this show here, all about Batman Beyond and his story there. We covered a couple episodes of Batman Beyond, as well as an episode of Justice League Unlimited to kind of round things out, but they all have to do with Batman Beyond. Patreon.com/the Whatnauts is where you can support us. You can get access to the live streams of this show, which is what we are doing right now, as well at the $3 level.
Yes.
You can get access to those exclusive episodes. And I believe that is all the housekeeping for now. Let's get into spoiler alert and see if my spoiler alert thing is working. And no, it is not. So, pew, pew, pew! Spoiler alert right now. Things are happening. I'll have to go fix all of the graphics. I cleaned off my computer and I moved a couple things around, and that's why it's like I hit the button. It's like, hey, it's not located where you told us it's located. And I didn't fix that, so there we go. Spoiler alert time right here, right now. In effect. Where do you want to start with this? Because this is an interesting one.
I want to start with the superhero aspect of it.
Okay.
Which is on the more minor side of the entire story overall. It's more like that's just kind of this framing device that it uses. It's
kind of
this
the
piece
setup
of
for the
backstory.
character.
Yeah, it's the setup, but it's not. This isn't a superhero movie. It's just a movie about a man who was a superhero once and has this like superhero like alter ego that just like comes, like it's this voice. You hear this voice talking to him, and it's not until like the last half hour of the movie that the voice materializes itself into Birdman, and it's Birdman following the actor around like, we used to be big, we could do it again.
One day we shall have our vengeance.
The first time I saw this movie, and again, like as I was watching it again this time, I kept wanting it to take a turn into being more superheroic. Not that I don't love what it is with the superheroism, just as that like setup, but I would love to see a version of this movie where Edward Norton is not just an antagonist, but a villain.
Okay. Were you looking for more? I guess what you said makes sense in the classic comic book sense, where there's the hero and the villain. But I guess I was going to ask if you were looking for more like action rather than like philosophical, like where's meaning
like
in
that.
life and.
Not like that. It's not like I want them to fight more. It's that Riggan, that's his character, is the protagonist of the story. He's the hero. And then in comes Edward Norton. I think his character is just named Mike.
I believe so. Mike Shiner.
Yeah, and in comes Mike, and who's kind of taking over.
I mean, he kind of is the. I mean, he is an antagonist in one sense.
Yeah, he's a foil to Riggan in a lot of ways. But the way Riggan kind of thinks of himself as a hero, I wanted it to take the turn where he looks at Mike and thinks of Mike as his villain. Like, I kind of wanted the superhero metaphor to expand to everything else that's going on. Especially because Mike seems like such an opposite to Riggan. Okay. This is something I'm so happy I have this podcast now, because this is something I've been thinking about for years.
Yes.
And finally I have a place to talk about it.
Hit me with it.
They are set up to be these two opposing forces, not unlike hero and villain.
Right.
Batman and Joker, Spider-Man and Green Goblin, what have you. There's the theme of truth or dare throughout the movie. Like that's what his daughter Sam, like she asks Mike when they're hanging out up on the roof, okay, let's play truth or dare. Mike is all about truth. All he wants to do is find the truth in the scene. Like he's furious that he's supposed to play this drinker and they give him water. And he's like, no, you give me gin. I'm going to drink gin on stage because this has to be real. He's all about truth. And Riggan is so bold. He's so experimental. He's daring. I think there might even be a spot somewhere in the movie where somebody's like, Riggan, how dare you? Or, boy, this is like a real bold dare you're doing. I don't remember, but I seem to think somebody like says dare in relation to him at some point. So they are these opposed forces kind of coming towards each other.
I think I would almost argue the opposite.
And
you're not wrong. I think in one sense, yes, they like that's who the characters are. Like Mike wants he wants to find the truth on stage, but I think Riggan is looking for like more truth in life and meaning to life. And so to me, it's that weird thing of Mike is the one who's more daring. He's the one who's willing to pull all of these stunts on stage to make it happen, to make things happen. And when he is actually playing truth or dare, when he's in actual real life, he seems scared. And so he kind of defaults to just ask me a question and I'm not going to do anything.
No. That's
wild.
Not the thing, is that he's like, truth is always more interesting. Dares are boring. Ask me a question. He's not chickening out. He's like, this is like the wilder thing for us to do. Ask me truths. Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you there. I think you're right. But it's this weird, like, I don't know if dichotomy is the right word in this character, but like this idea that it seems like he's one way on stage and the opposite way off the stage. And so that's why it's like you see him as this one thing, and I was maybe initially going to argue them as something, or I did initially argue for them as something else, but they are both.
And isn't that
oddly kind of the same?
Yeah, and isn't that just the superhero supervillain thing? Like, you're not so different, you and I. Like, you could have turned into me.
Don't say that. We'll never be alike.
I wanted the metaphor that Riggan has for himself and that kind of fuzzy, because it's not 100% clear. These are all fantasies.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems very unlikely that he is just flying around New York City and nobody does anything about it. Like, that one's a fantasy. There definitely are things that are fantasies, but I would not say that every fantastical thing is a fantasy necessarily. Yeah. It's ambiguous like that, which I liked, and I wanted to see how far they were going to stretch that. And if it would take a turn into, okay, you think he's just kind of stressed out by his job and he needs an escape and he sort of pretends he has these superpowers because if he's stuck with this Birdman legacy hanging over him, he might as well use it. You might as well if Birdman can float, I can float. I wanted to see how far that would be stretched and how far it would turn. If he's got that, does anybody else have something like that? I wanted to see the superheroism stretched to beyond just him.
Like if Edward Norton was also chasing some kind of role that he had in the past or something like that. Like
I don't know. Or like if somebody looked at him and I'm like, okay, Mr. Superhero, I'm your, like if Mike declared himself like the villain or something like that. I don't know exactly how it would go. But gotcha. When I first saw the movie, I'm like, come on, more superhero stuff. And there's other bits of it too, like the Zach Galifianakis as the friend, as the producer. Like one of the first bits he has in the movie when they are hiring Mike to replace that guy, he's like, ask me this. Ask me if he sells tickets. Ask me if the critics love him. And then at the end, Riggan has shot himself, and Zach Galifianakis, I forget his name, is like trying to assure him the play's going to do well. He's like, Jake. Okay. He's like, I can see the future. And the future is big bucks for the rest of this play. Like he's almost got if it was not this story, if this story did not have that super heroic kind of setup for it, I wouldn't think twice about any of this. But I was looking at everybody like if this was some sort of a superhero opera. Like, okay.
He seems like a mix between like an Alfred kind of caretaker character as well as like the immediate sidekick.
Or he's like an oracle or something.
Yeah, which is like the like caretaker person in the chair, like, hey, here's what you need to do, here's where you need to go, hey, I'll fix you up when things go wrong. But he's also like, I'm the one keeping this ship afloat. He's also there fighting too, if that makes sense, just not necessarily in the limelight.
Yeah,
like the main hero.
Yeah, this watch around, I was looking at everybody like, what if they too had some sort of a superpower? Like the blonde woman, I think her name is Leslie. Like, she says something like, I feel like I'm just a little girl. Like, I feel like I'm not grown up yet. I need somebody to tell me you've made it big. Like, I know I have, but I need to hear that to really believe it, to stop feeling like just a kid doing play acting. And maybe it's because we just saw Shazam, but I, like, I'm looking at everybody like, what's your superhero persona were this to expand to being the entire cast and not just the protagonist?
Yeah. The one that doesn't feel like they belong, but they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting look at it, of like who fits into all of those roles there. It's I saw Riggan, Mike, and Riggan's daughter was her name, Sam by Emma Stone. Yeah, those three I feel like were the like opposing viewpoints, so to speak, if that makes sense. Like you have Riggan, who is kind of chasing after this high, like he has this past success that he wants to recapture the magic, so to speak, and he kind of in that truth or dare metaphor is as you said, he's the one that's more about the dare. He's looking for that next stunt. Then you have Edward Norton's character, who's almost the opposite, who is more like, let's live in the moment. It's not about it's not about the past. It's more about just doing things as they come and living right here, right now. And then there's the daughter, which is like, none of it's real. It's all meaningless. Look, you've gotten 80,000 likes because you're in your underwear. What the fuck does that even mean? Nothing. You're an idiot. That's what it means. And it's these like 3 points on a triangle, which are like all different viewpoints of the same thing. Which is what I saw, and they were all in their own way kind of chasing the truth, or like, what is the truth? What is meaning in life? Is it this big moment of success? Is it just being there, or is it actually meaningless?
Yeah, like they're all trying to find some place of contentedness. Like, when are you done? When have you worked hard enough? When do you rest? When do you throw away or have achieved all of your wants and you don't need anything else? And there's no constant like nagging, hunger in you to do something, to do fame or art or drugs or whatever.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I liked those three, like the dynamic between those three. But yeah, I like you already mentioned it too. There's that scene where the woman is crying, being like, I feel like I used to be a little child wanting to be here. Now I am here, but I still feel like a little child who doesn't belong. And I think that's also kind of within that kind of pursuit of like, hey, what is the meaning in life and stuff like that. I feel like that's an that's in my mind just went blank on the word that I'm supposed to say. That is a common reaction to people, I think, who have found it or have found their niche, right? Or just like, hey, you're actually good at this and you're doing it. That's a lot more than most people can say, and yet you still don't feel like you belong. And you know, there's this imposter syndrome there that I think she has, and I think that's super common. And to see it, someone who's in the middle of this thing, or just got off stage, you know, on after this thing, and it was a terrifying moment, but at the same time, from the audience's perspective, they didn't really know what was going on per se. Like to them, they just saw this really emotionally raw scene. And so from their perspective, everything was fantastic. This was like, this is exactly how the theater should be. You know, we had this connection, but behind the scenes, you get this woman who just had this traumatic experience, all in the name of art, kind of. And she's not necessarily worried about that. She's more worried about herself and that she hasn't made it. Like she's not necessarily good enough or something like that. It's people's anxieties, especially in artists, of just like self-doubt and stuff like that. I know I have them all the time. But it's weird, and it's sometimes hard to follow. Of just like, why are you even thinking about this? Like, there's absolutely no reason for you, and yet we still do that. Strange.
Yeah, especially in her circumstance.
Great scene, though. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Especially in her circumstances, where it's really, Riggan seems like he's pretty good to his castmates. Like, he's very stressed and he's very, like, kind of tense about the whole thing, but he's not, like, super bossy or super disrespectful or anything. It's really just that he's kind of in his own head and maybe not always paying real close attention to anybody. But when you get him and Mike yelling at each other, it's like they have taken over the show. And the other two actresses, because it's just a 4-person cast, this show within the show, this play that they're doing inside the movie, the other two, like the two actresses, are just kind of like, well, we're along for the ride then, I guess.
Yeah.
And you set me thinking, I think the subtitle, The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, kind of applies to the audience of the play itself, because the audience seems like they're having a good time. Like, there's all this tension about whether or not this play is going to take off, but it seems like whenever we hear bits of chatter from the audience, that they are enjoying themselves. You hear laughter, you hear applause. They seem like they are getting what they are supposed to get out of this play.
Except for maybe the first time that they do it, when things go horribly wrong, and they're just like, what was that?
Yeah, like, maybe not the first time, the one where Mike just stands up and starts screaming that he was giving water instead of gin. Not that time, but like the other previews and the opening night, the rest of the times, I feel like the audience is having a good time. Because they have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. They don't know what a mess everything is. They don't know that all these actors are a wreck trying to get this thing put together, and they don't need to know. The actors don't want them to know. So the fact that that's taken out of the equation for them, and they don't have to worry about it. It's not like the movie is saying, like, oh, if only the audience knew, like, how terrible everything is, and they're sitting there laughing and clapping. Like, like, the point of this is for the audience to have a good time, and they do. Because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Which is an interesting thing, because like oftentimes you want to connect with the audience and have them understand like what you're going. If you could only understand, maybe you would understand this character better or something like that. Which that doesn't necessarily always play out the way you would want it to, right? Like you have this ignorance if you're on that side of the curtain, so to speak. So yeah, it's fascinating. I want to talk similarly about the kind of relationship between I guess Critic in the audience in that, 'cause that's also a similar thing. Like here, like in the movie, there is the one critic, I forget what her name was.
Tabitha.
Yes, Tabitha Dickinson. I see it here on the thing. But she, like, there's also this struggle of not only like appeasing audiences, but then getting a good review so that down the road more audiences will come. And the thing is with critics, or even like what we're doing here on this podcast, is we're dissecting things. We actually are trying to like infer things that are happening behind the curtain to maybe better understand it, and something like that. To some people, they could care less about that stuff, and it's like, it's just a fucking movie. Who cares? You know. And there's this I like this, not idea or backlash, but this kind of notion that you don't need to pick everything apart. You can just sit there and enjoy it. You don't need to, you know, find the minute detail and find the meaning in that stuff. You know, sometimes you just need to sit there and watch it, or sometimes the movie is meaningless. You know, it's the exact same little triangle that they have there. So I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, and it's what Tabitha specifically has against this production, because she tells Riggan, I'm going to destroy this. I'm going to tear your play apart, before she's even seen it, before she really knows anything about it, because he is this big Hollywood actor who maybe hasn't been a big Hollywood actor in some years, but he is a household name, more or less, still. And she's upset that he is just coming in there, like, trying to do a play, and she thinks he's like, you're not really doing this for the sake of theater, for the sake of art. You just want to, you know, put on this little show for yourself, and you know, you wrote it and you directed it and you starred in it. And it
kind of right. Like he is chasing this past success that he has, and he thinks he's maybe lost his time on the big screen, but hey, he can still make it on Broadway and do something that way.
He's not doing it. He wants the play to be successful, not so that he will be successful. He wants the play to be successful because that's what he wants to do. It's not like, oh, if I could only get back in the limelight, maybe this will work. It's like, no, I've always wanted to tell this story. I love acting. I want to direct. Like, he is sincerely making an art project. And Tabitha's looking at it like, oh, this is just your latest venture to get, you know, riches and fortune, and I hate you for it, and I'm going to tear you apart so that nobody else tries to do this.
The vitriol.
Yeah, she is angry at him because of not what the play is or what he is doing now, but because of what he has done. And it seems like that's Riggan's whole struggle, is that he wants people to stop thinking about him as old Riggan. He's like, he cannot get a fresh start. He cannot be looked at only in the context of what he is currently doing. He is this huge past that he cannot shake off his shoulders. It's like this massive pair of wings stuck to his back. It can let him fly, but it's also so heavy.
Yeah, it's weighing him down, so to speak, too. I wanted to move into like the way this was filmed.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten into the technical side of it.
Yeah. because this is something you don't see very much of in Hollywood, or if you do, it's only for an extended like scene rather
Yeah.
than an entire movie. This looks like
Hmm.
it was like one single long shot, and the
Yes.
whole movie is this one shot, and that's kind of part of the magic of it,
Hmm.
part of the magical realism, because
Yeah.
it really feels like it only takes 2 hours to watch this thing, but within the movie, like time is actually progressing and
Yeah.
changing. There's
Like
been
it.
months in there, but it looks like
Mhm.
it's all one shot.
Yeah, I think
Obviously, it's
it's
not, but
maybe not months. I think it definitely takes place over the course of at least like a couple days.
yeah,
And there are
something like that.
scenes where like the camera's panning around the city and it goes up to the sky and you see just like all of a sudden it's dawn when it was night and then it pans back down and it's back into the story again.
Mhm.
I don't know if another movie that does use these long shots like this also has it take place over that amount of time. I feel like if you're doing one long shots, you're also doing real time.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm not familiar with if any other big movies really use
There
that.
is
The scene
there
that
was
I'm thinking of is the hallway fight scene from Old Boy,
oh, I haven't
where
seen Old Boy. I was
it's just one big long fight scene that goes on for 5 minutes, and it's ridiculous and it's fantastic.
I
And go ahead.
no, I was saying I was thinking of the opening scene from Serenity.
Okay,
I think that's the most recent long shot I've seen. And then there's an
I haven't
Alfred
seen that in a
Hitchcock
long
movie
time.
from however many decades ago called Rope, I think is
Is
what
that
that one is.
the locked
Yeah,
room one?
no, he doesn't do locked room ones. I think it's Rope, which is the one that is shot like this. It's all long shots like that.
Interesting.
I think that's the right movie.
Have you seen first season of Marvel's Daredevil
I
show?
have seen Daredevil,
So
yes.
that hallway fight scene in
Mm,
episode 2 is an homage
okay.
to the one in Old Boy, um, and the original Korean Old Boy one, not the one that Spike Lee made. That one's not as good. Sorry, Spike Lee. Um, but yeah, like I really like that technique because
Hmm.
it really does make you feel like you are there within these cramped
Yes.
hallways behind the scenes of the play. But yeah, like I said, it adds to this magical realism
Hmm.
that you're seeing time change, but you're not at the same
Hmm.
time. Like it just within the simple act of them opening a door and going, outside, the day has changed.
Yeah.
It's the next day, even though it looks like it's just 2 seconds, and then they go outside. It's fantastic. I love
Hmm.
it. Um, there's a recent video game that does this. It's God of War, and it's
Hmm.
fantastic. It's that like third person behind the shoulder, and
Okay.
it's one single shot. They do the loading screens very cleverly, where it hides it. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, you're kind of zooming out here, and it's looking like this might be something where it's loading in the background, or certain actions when you like lift up a door or something. It's a little bit of a longer animation,
Hmm.
so I can see you loading things, within that time frame. But it has this appeal where it feels like it puts you right there in the action, which is I think fantastic.
Yeah, and what this and that drum score
Mm-hmm.
have to it is this real sense of urgency and of tension and of
Yeah.
this like pounding heartbeat kind of, which is the kind of the attitude of the whole movie and like where the protagonist is. Like they are counting down the days until opening night, and it has to go perfectly because this is a make it or break it situation. And just like the tight, cramped hallways, and the cameras just kind of whipping around through it and like following everybody as just like running up and down the stairs backstage with that like pounding drum score. It does make you feel like really tense.
Yeah, it's a very anxious type of
score. Yeah. Yeah, all this technical stuff makes it feel anxious, like it's supposed to feel.
Yeah. I mean, because they are like, that's the thing when you're putting on a play and you kind of need to get things moving. You need to get things rolling. You need to change into your next outfit and change your makeup and do this and move this set, back behind there and stuff. And there's almost no time to stop, which is basically what the way this was filmed made you feel like. Like there is no time to stop and consider this stuff. It's just next thing.
This is a really claustrophobic movie, kind of.
Good word.
Like the theater they're in has a lot of like really tight hallways and tiny spaces, and there's like the scene with Mike and Leslie like under the sheets in the bed on stage. There's a lot of small spaces. And so much of this movie does take place inside that theater. And sometimes they go outside, but I'd say the entirety of this movie takes place within like 2 blocks of each other.
Yeah.
Over a couple days. It's really compressed.
Yeah, very much.
So you're not working with a lot of space. You're not working with a lot of time. The camera angles are always like really close. Like, when you feel like you're a part of the movie, you don't have any elbow room working in this space. Like, you are kind of crammed in there along with the actors.
Exactly.
And there's also that narrative claustrophobia of Riggan cannot get out from under his past. Like there's the counting down to opening night and making sure it goes well. There's like, he's being compressed on both sides. Like, he can't get out from underneath anything.
Good stuff. Did you have like because there's also one for cinematography stuff. Did you have a favorite scene or favorite moment of the film that you wanted to touch on?
I want to talk real briefly about the fantasy sequences when they get really fantastical.
Sure.
Because the first shot of the movie, I think, is him levitating. He's just sort of like got his arms crossed, got his legs crossed, like he's meditating or something like that. But he's floating like 3 feet off the ground.
I almost forgot that scene by the end of it.
And like he kind of waves his hand, and then like a door will slam or the TV will go on or off.
Yeah.
And like the lighting rig crashes on the guy who originally has Mike's part, and it falls down on him, and Riggan's like, I made that happen.
Yeah. That wasn't an accident.
Okay, Riggan. Like it's just sort of like camera tricks and timing and like little things like that. All of these fantastical representations of his powers.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the full superhero battle. Briefly for a couple of minutes, like towards the end of the film, and it looks gorgeous. It does look like any Spider-Man movie or anything, and it's got these flaming meteors and this giant like mecha dragon like screaming down at him, breathing fire.
Mecha bird.
It's very suddenly there, and then it's very suddenly gone.
Yeah.
Still all within the one shots. Like, it never breaks that technical format they're doing, but it just suddenly gets amped up to, okay, now here's the superhero blockbuster, and now we're just going to turn the dial back down to straight-laced drama.
Yeah. So I liked a lot of those scenes too, but I liked the more subtle fantasy scenes, because that's the stuff that I feel like fucks with you. It's like, wait, is he actually doing that? The whole thing of the light falling and him being like, yeah, that wasn't an accident. It's like, wait, we didn't actually see him be like, whoa, heebie-jeebie magical powers fall on him. Like it seems to just happen.
Yes.
But then it's his comment after that is, huh, okay. One of my favorite scenes is when he goes into the liquor store and
Yeah.
he comes back out and there's the crazy guy, which was that the guy that got hit with the, no, that was not the guy that got hit with the thing, right?
What guy who got hit with a thing?
They
Oh no,
were
no.
just
The
light that
actor?
fall. Yeah.
No. We see him very briefly later. Like he shows up
He's
in
in
his
the
wheelchair
wheelchair,
and
right?
neck
Okay.
brace, which
Yeah.
is like this tiny plot thread that gets nudged over to the side because like
Yeah.
it's not Riggan's job to deal with, it's Jake's job to deal with, and we never really watched Jake go deal with it.
So I really like that scene because you have the drum score that's going on in the background, and then you seemingly have another layer to that score of this kind of vocal, like beat poem kind of thing. I forget I felt like that was a poem from something or from some other script, and I recognized it.
Yeah, or if it's like a biblical, verse or something
like
that,
something
or a famous
like that.
poem.
And now
it is something.
I can't think of any of the lines he was saying in that scene, but like he walks into the liquor store and it's beautiful. I've never seen a more beautiful little corner liquor store with all of those fairy lights and stuff like that. It's literally magical.
It's
and
gorgeous.
Yeah, you hear this stuff, but then he walks out of the building and you see that it's not, just an audio track that's happening. There is someone out on the street literally performing that poem or that verse, and I feel like that's a scene that I'm gonna have to go back and watch again to really figure out what is happening.
There's so much going on.
There's a lot of parallels between what is happening with Riggan and what is happening in the play and what is happening like in that one scene and what is being spoken. And it's this kind of moment where he comes into contact with this. I don't think it's really a fourth wall breaking, but fourth wall for Riggan, where I think he kind of starts to understand, like, wait, is this play just about me? Is everything just reflecting my life here? What is going on? And it's this really powerful scene. Like, that is the kind of acting that I feel like I would see on the like highest of thespian stages. You know what I mean?
It's great.
And it's a fantastic scene, and he just comes into contact with it, and he almost seems skeptical.
Yeah,
like, is this really happening? I
think Riggan is questioning what's happening as much as the audience is questioning what's happening, but in like different ways.
Yeah.
Like, of course we know that the man yelling on the street is going to parallel what's going on with him, but he stops and he's like, are you talking about me? What's going on here?
Yeah.
I like that he does that too.
You're just a crazy man.
I also just want to stop and say I like how this movie treats New York City, because I feel like that's a place can be depicted like very sort of shiny and dreamy and idealistic, or very like gritty and grimy, and this just sort of seems very natural. Like there's a dirty guy yelling in the street, but there's also like, when Riggan fantasizes that he's Birdman flying around and he's standing on a roof ledge, there's a man who comes up and like tries to talk him down and is like, holding gently on his arm, like,
hey,
are you
making
okay?
One of those movies?
There's that lady who's screaming at him, and then there's the man trying to talk him down, like, is there somebody I can call for you? Are you feeling okay? I like how New York was not like, it wasn't all heroes or all villains. It was like true, honest, bystanders, whether they're yelling at you or there to support you.
New York is also kind of that microcosm of the stage where everything is cramped. The hallways are narrow, the streets are narrow. Like, everyone of all types are just packed in right there.
Yeah.
You have the rich people going to see the theater. You have the homeless people right outside. They're all just right there.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought it was a lovely portrayal of the city. It's not just technically beautifully shot. I don't know, it just felt like
Mhm.
honest and nice and not too far into either shiny or grimy, like right down the
Yeah.
middle.
I also really liked the scene when he gets locked out of the
Yes.
building, which is kind of one of the more comedic moments in the thing, because
Mm-hmm.
immediately it's like, all right, he's gonna have to like take
Yeah.
his robe off and wander around naked and get back in.
Yeah.
um, but it adds to the like surrealism of the play
Yes.
once he gets back
Yes.
in, because he's I mean, obviously the play is mimicking what's happening in his real
Mm-hmm.
life, but it's um I say real life in air quotes, because again, this is all just a movie. But
Mm-hmm.
he, instead of being an actor who's in a wig, who was in this storm on his way to confront his lover who's cheating on
Yeah.
him, he's kind of now actually become that character. It's that moment where it really solidifies that
Yeah.
he has become him. He's been out in the rain,
Yeah.
just like the character was supposed to be. He's confused. He's wondering what's going on. He's at his wits end, exactly. Like he's going crazy, and he feels like someone else is now taking it all from him.
Mm-hmm.
That he, Mike Shiner was the character's name of Edward no Edward Norton's
Mm-hmm.
character, who's like come in and he's starting to steal the show.
Yeah.
And this is a scene where it just gets that much more surreal to see him from this different perspective, because they get out of the bed in that scene and look towards the
And he's
door,
not
and
there.
he's not there. Yeah, and he's in the audience, and the crowd also like has no idea what's going
Yeah.
on, but at the same time it makes for this really
Mm-hmm.
interesting theatrical scene, which I feel like is something that I've seen theater do before, where it's like they come out like the back door
Yes.
behind the audience and stuff, so it really makes you feel like you're in the middle of this
Mm-hmm.
scene. I've been to like 3
Oh my.
plays in my
I've
life,
been
and I
to a
think
ton of plays, and I
2 of
have
them
seen
have been
that.
the exact same one on accident. And
Oh.
yeah, and like even then I feel like they've utilized that, which
Mhm.
is maybe a more modern concept of like
No.
coming in behind the audience, or behind, like, not stage left or stage right, or the this just on stage, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
not always just right there in front of you. And so I think it adds this just this new perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that scene a lot. First of all, when he gets out into Times Square, he's going past all of those like costume characters who were there for like
Spider-Man
unofficially.
is
It's
there. Yeah.
it's just a guy who bought a costume and is like, "I'll take a picture with your kid for $5."
Yeah.
He runs past Spider-Man and Iron Man
Uh-huh.
both in the same scene 2 years before Civil War comes out. Which might be something that only entertains me and the one friend I texted, but I thought that was neat.
Yeah, I mean, we do get that superhero fight later on,
Yeah.
when the drum line is out there on stage
Mm.
and Spider-Man is fighting Iron Man.
Yeah, and like I think that's the one point that deviates from the technical format of the entire film is after Riggan shoots himself, and it's this kind of dreamlike interstitial between him shooting himself on stage and him in the hospital bed, and you see these like little fragmentary shots of like things we've seen throughout the movie and things he's told us from his past. Like he talks about after he had that big fight with his wife, he wanted to try and drown himself, and he walks into the sea and he gets stung by so many jellyfish, and he's just throwing them off and panicking and like running back onto the sand like, forget it, I didn't agree to do this with jellyfish there. And so you see the shot of just a bunch of jellyfish on the beach. like that sort of dreamlike thing where like it takes the people from out in Times Square and it puts them on the stage with him.
Yeah.
That's a neat break from it, that little dreamlike bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those surreal moments
Hmm.
because it's very chaotic, and I feel like it's supposed to mimic how he's feeling, but it's
Yeah, it's
also
that like life flashes before your eyes when you're dying. It's like a
mhm,
portrayal of that, but it's not like, oh, remember all the, remember when my daughter was born.
it's not
Remember,
yeah,
when
it's not
I did
necessarily
this.
his memories. There's just all of this
Yeah.
like nonsensical stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I walked past a marching band on the street like 2 days ago, and that's
Yeah,
what I see before I die.
yeah. But you mentioned the jellyfish scene and stuff like
Hmm.
that. That was like the flashes of that, because I think we also get one of those at the start of the film
Oh,
too.
okay.
Um, and I kind of took that to be more of the thread of Sam. I believe that was her
Hmm.
name, right? Yeah. Where her perspective is the everything is meaningless. This
Yeah.
whole like pursuit to make art is meaningless thing is I think her thing. And it's like, hey,
Hmm.
there's real stuff out in the world happening. Our beaches are dying. There's
Hmm.
this pollution and stuff, because it looked kind of like one of those scenes, and that's what I took it as,
Huh.
of like, oh, there's these dead things that have washed up on the beach. uh there's actual like world problems out there, and
Hmm.
you're concerned with playing a some fictional character. Like,
Hmm.
that's not a real problem, you know. And so I was like, okay, that's more of her perspective, and him kind of thinking about that, of just like, hey, is everything I'm doing actually meaningless? Is it? No? Yes? Who knows?
Hmm.
Good scene though.
Hmm. I want to go ahead to what did you think about the ending?
Did you have like a specific, or just in general, of like?
That final shot, because we've been talking a little bit about how there's all these fantastical things in the movie
Mhm.
that are, many of them are just sort of imaginary, but there's, when you look at them, not everything is necessarily disproven.
Yeah.
Like the scene when Riggan is trashing his dressing room, and he starts like physically like picking stuff up and throwing them, and then he's like power blasting, he's like, shooting psychic waves out of his hands to like blow stuff off the walls.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing telling us he didn't do that, which is
There's
the way
also
this.
nothing really telling us that he didn't
Yes,
actually like pick it up and throw it, or
it's
punch
all
it.
super, it's very ambiguous. Like
Yeah.
nothing is really proven or disproven. I mean, like I said at the beginning, like I don't think he went flying around New York City without anybody saying anything about it. So that one is like 99.9% of fantasy. But there's other things, like smaller, like more quiet, private things that like you don't know. And the
Hmm.
final bit of the movie is he gets up out of his out of his hospital bed, and he's standing on the ledge. That's the last time you saw him. And then you see Sam come in with like a bouquet of flowers for him or something, and she can't find him, and she looks out the window, and she has this almost like half a smile on her face. What did you interpret that final shot as?
I it's one of those weird, almost Inception like things, where you
Yes.
don't really know what happened at the ending, because he did get what he wanted, right? Like, his
Mhm.
play was a huge success.
Yeah.
um and so he reached that high, but at the same time it was kind of at the expense of everything else. There's that
Hmm.
Thanos meme, what did it cost? Everything.
Hmm.
And so there's this idea that he jumps out the window,
Hmm.
and we don't see what happened, so we don't know which direction he went. And there's either he killed himself because he finally reached that moment and he knows he's never gonna get it again. It cost him everything. Might as well just go out on a bang, you know? Or there's this idea that, hey, he reached success, so he's soaring. He's flying, which Emma Stone looks down and she's concerned, but she's looking around like she doesn't see anything, though. So that's kind of my hint that, I mean, it's still so ambiguous because it might even just be her smiling of her realizing that he found it, even though she doesn't necessarily believe in it. If that makes sense. It's I don't think you can say one way or another.
No, because she does not look exactly like, oh, my father jumped out of this window. She does not look like that. She's not pointed down. She doesn't look that horrified. And it's not necessarily like, wow, look at my dad up there flying. It's not exactly either of those. It's this kind of like wistful, like wondrous, slight smile to her that is, I think, a little bit more indicative of the magic realism than the, falling to his death. I think it's more indicative of flight, but again, you don't know.
That's the one that I want to have happen, that he grew wings and flew off,
I like that a lot. Like, this is a story about how much art impacts you, how much it impacts an audience member. Like, he hasn't been in a Birdman movie in 10 or 15, 20 years, like a long time since he was Birdman. But people are still like, oh my God, that's Birdman. Wow, Birdman. Like, imagine if Michael Keaton had done Batman and Batman Returns and then really hadn't done anything since then. Would he still be Batman to us today?
He still kind of is that.
He's so many more things, though.
Right. He's a fantastic actor, and he's done a lot of things since then that have been fantastic. But that's still one of his most recognizable roles, and so that's kind of the meta narrative behind.
I like that
after
meta
the
narrative
movie,
a lot
too. That it's like, yeah, Michael Keaton in real life has found success after Batman, but we still recognize him as Batman. We're still like, oh, that's Batman. We know him as Batman. So did he really get that success that he was looking for? Who knows?
What I was kind of aiming for was that as much as we like Batman here in our world, the people within this movie love Birdman just as much or even more, even if it was something that was just, and it doesn't seem like a constantly rebooted and revamped and reinterpreted franchise like Batman is to us. Like, Birdman was one trilogy a decade or more ago in this world of the film, and people are still like, oh my God, Birdman, I loved Birdman. Like, when he's in that little mini press junket inside his dressing room.
Birdman 4? You do Birdman 4?
There's like some sort of
I love that one.
I don't know exactly who that guy is or why he's there, but he's like, Birdman 4 is like mentioned offhand, and he's so great. Excited at the concept of it.
He just light bulb. Just
Yeah. And so the audience feels so strongly about that piece of art. And art so strongly impacts the people who make it. Like, Riggan, Birdman is a part of him for real. Like, he's got the voice inside his head is Birdman. We did that episode on Batman Beyond, which we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, where it's revealed that Bruce Wayne inside his head refers to himself as Batman. And there's
kind of what I was
Bruce
thinking about when I
talking
watched
to
this.
Bruce, calling him Batman, and this is Birdman talking to Riggan, calling him Riggan, but the voice isn't Riggan's own voice, it's Birdman.
Yeah.
So that character, that piece of art made such a deep impact on him. Ultimately, I would like to believe that this movie could make it real and believable that if that has touched you that deeply, you can manifest it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the spirit of Birdman in you, you can grow wings, you can have Birdman's powers.
Anyone can be Birdman.
I think the movie is about like the impact that art has on you as an audience and as a creator.
Yeah.
And it's so wondrous. I would like to believe that it is more likely to have that kind of fantastical manifestation than to have a suicide.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Um, Final question for you.
Mm.
I was looking at the Wikipedia article, and I believe, yeah, so it describes this as a black comedy, like a
Uh-huh.
dark comedy. I wanted to know if you agreed with that or not, because I don't know if I do.
It's got comedic moments for sure. I don't know if it has enough of them for me to class. I don't know if I'd necessarily classify this as a comedy or as a drama. Maybe a little bit more on the drama side, despite, the funny
I
moments.
would say more of a
Yeah.
drama or like a psychological thriller, but comedy,
Yeah, it is
no.
like the lowest stakes psychological thriller. It's the
Sure.
lowest stakes, most fun psychological thriller you've ever seen.
Philosophical psychological thriller, I don't know,
Who
but
knows?
yeah, like even dark comedies don't have to be laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
Is the thing.
Hmm.
It's drier, it's darker, it's stuff like, ooh, I don't know if I should be laughing at that. And I don't feel like there was any of that in here. Like I even in a more theatrical sense of the word comedy, like I'm thinking of like comedies versus tragedies.
Yeah, well, think back again to Shakespeare. Like, it's
Yeah,
a comedy ends with a wedding, a tragedy ends with a death or a murder or a suicide or something like that. So I guess if you take that old school definition, this
is
is
more of a
a
tragedy,
drama.
I feel
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tragedy.
But yeah, so I don't, not that I'm trying to sit here and debate the merits of the accuracy of
Oh,
Wikipedia,
no.
but,
No, that's an
but
interesting thing to talk about. Like, how would you pitch this to somebody? Because I originally pitched it to you as an unconventional superhero tale,
yeah.
which is not definitively what it is. This can be viewed a lot of ways, and that's my favorite lens to use.
Mm-hmm.
There might be somebody who looks at it like as a very dramatic comedy or as a very comedic drama, if they come from a different background or if there's
Sure.
different parts of the movie that they like most. The super heroic part of it is what I like most. So that's how I pitched it to you, and that's how I think about it.
Yeah. Um, what other things might you recommend to someone who enjoyed this?
Hmm.
I,
What do you have?
I was gonna say the episode that we just did on the review show here, Perfect Blue.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is like a direct meeting of Perfect Blue and the artist.
Yeah, that could work as well. Yeah, like I think it's a difficult one to pinpoint
Mm-hmm.
because there is so much happening in this thing. But yeah, it is very much about like the philosophical merits of art and the
Mm-hmm.
search for truth and meaning in life and the consequences that has, and that's kind of the debate that Perfect Blue has of what is
Mm-hmm.
the consequence of fame, of stardom, of being a
Yes.
pop icon,
Mm-hmm.
of being this big famous movie
Mm-hmm.
actor or actress. And so I think those go hand in hand, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. But outside of that, I'm struggling to.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think of this through a superhero lens, and I don't know exactly what superhero story it's most like. Maybe kind of like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, because not just because it's also set in New York City, but it's got that kind of
Mhm.
high drama, like operatic quality the Spider-Man movies have to them, where it's like
Sure.
big tragedy and like the big comedy and things like that.
Yeah.
It's
That makes
got such
sense.
like bold theatrical strokes to it.
Yeah. That
You know, you think about like there's the Green Goblin bit where it's like
I
the
can see
mask
that for
is
sure.
talking to him and the mask is haunting Harry. Oh, if I had to pick a superhero story that it reminded me of most, oh, go back and watch the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies again.
um yeah. I think that would be a good one. I am
Mm-hmm.
pulling up the stuff that I am going to
Itches.
pitch. Yeah. Tobia, blue. And pulling up the third one, which is on Netflix. Bam. Let's see. There we go. The Wikipedias for all of these. So I am going to pitch the stuff that we will be doing for this next episode.
Yeah.
And let's start with this one. Pitch number
Mm-hmm.
1 is a manga
Mm-hmm.
called Knights of Sidonia.
Okay.
This is a kind of sci-fi action mecha,
Mm-hmm.
almost horror in certain
Oh.
aspects. It's pretty neat. The story follows this one character whose name I am blanking on at the moment, and I'm skimming through whatchamacallit. Here we go. According to Wikipedia, the story follows the adventures of guard pilot Nagate Tanakaze, who lived in the underground layers of Sidonia since his birth and was raised by his grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Never having met anyone else, he trains himself in an old Guardian pilot simulator every day until eventually mastering it. After his grandfather's death, he emerges to the surface and is selected as a Guardian pilot, just as Sidonia is once again threatened by the Guana.
Okay.
So there you go. It's this like kid who's this space pilot of this giant mecha, and he has to defend Sidonia from this alien threat.
Mm-hmm.
But it's super sci-fi. There's mecha. There's some horror aspects. I wanted to read the first 4 volumes of the manga.
Okay.
There is also a Netflix adaptation of
Oh.
this. Just F.
Maybe that's where I've heard that name before.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. I think they had 2 seasons, like 24 episodes, something like that. But yeah, I watched the anime a long time ago, but I wanted to check out the manga and see what that's all about. That's pitch number 1, Knights of Sidonia.
Mm-hmm.
Pitch number 2 is an anime movie.
Uh-huh.
It has 2 titles, kind of. The one I knew it as when I first found it was Terror in Tokyo. But it is also, I think the actual name is Terror in Resonance. Terror in Resonance.
Okay.
And this is it's an alternate version of present day Tokyo that is hit by a 9/11 like terrorist attack. And the only evidence of the culprits is this cryptic video that they uploaded to the internet, which sparks paranoia and all that stuff. There's a big like search to go find them and figure out who they are and stuff like that. In this though, you get both of the perspectives. It's not just we have no idea who it is and we're trying to figure it out, but we see the cops investigate, but we also see the perspective of the terrorists, of the people perpetrating this thing, and it's kind of an interesting one. There's a
Okay.
lot of cat and mouse kind of detective stuff
How would you
going
like?
on
What
as well.
genre would you put this in? Is it more just like sort of a crime mystery sort of thing, or is it like a political thriller?
Less political thriller,
Okay.
more like mystery, crime,
Okay.
psychological thriller
All
type
right.
of thing. But it is also, um, it's directed by Shinichiro Watanabe, who is very famous for doing Cowboy Bebop and Space
Yes.
Dandy and stuff like that. And
Okay.
we also covered Kids on the Slope. Um,
Oh, that's right.
he
Yeah,
also
I forgot he also
did that
did
one, which is
that.
one of my favorite ones. A
Yeah.
lot of his stuff is very influenced by music, and he
Hmm.
often collaborates with Yoko Kanno to do the music. She's in a band called the Seatbelts, which did the
Hmm.
music for Cowboy Bebop.
Hmm.
This one less focused on music. However, the music is still really good, and it is more of like a techno electronic type
Okay.
of thing. So there is this like urgency to you know how
Mm.
we talked about the drum beat makes you very tense and
Yeah.
anxious, and this I think kind of gives you the same feeling in a different aspect of just like it is this like constant pounding of this electronic stuff, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But again, it's a lot less focused on the music, despite me talking about it
Hmm.
now. So that's pitch number 2: Terror in Tokyo or Terror in Resonance.
Hmm.
Both names work. Pitch number 3 is a Netflix original movie, or at least one that they have the rights to stream.
Hmm.
It is a Spanish crime film
Oh,
called The Warning. I think I pitched it on here before. I don't remember if I
I
have or
don't
not.
recognize this.
So this is a crime story,
Hmm.
and there is this guy who's been investigating these 2 murders that happened in the past, and he discovers a connection between them.
Hmm.
Besides that, they happened at the same place. He's basically figuring out that there is a pattern, and it is based
Hmm.
off of this formula, this algorithm that he's come up with, and so he's figured out that there's going to be another one happening, and he's trying to stop it from happening. And it is I believe in Spanish it is called El Aviso, which I believe is
Hmm.
the warning.
That sounds like it checks out.
So there you go. That's all I know about that one. It's been on my
Mm.
Netflix list for a while, and I thought, why not? Let's just pitch that one.
Okay.
So that's pitch number 3. Pitch number 1 was Knights of Sidonia, volumes 1 through 4. Pitch
Hmm.
number 2 was Terror in Resonance, and pitch number 3 was The Warning. What are you feeling like
I am
this
really
weekend?
intrigued. I'm really intrigued by Terror in Tokyo.
Sounds good to
I
me.
I like the other stuff by that creator. I like the idea of a crime mystery disaster film. Oh, that's
Yeah,
always a plot thread that intrigues me. That sort of conflict of recovering after a major piece of disaster or destruction. Oh, that's I
definitely.
want to see how that plays out after hearing you describe it. That's the thing I'm most
Sure.
intrigued to see. Okay, what does all of this amount to? What does this actually look like?
So there is 11 episodes of
Oh, I
this,
thought
so
you
it's a
said it was a
fairly short one.
movie.
No, this is an anime series. I may have said it was a
Yeah,
movie, but that
you
was
said it was a
my fault.
movie.
No, it's an 11 episode anime, so a little bit longer than a movie, but they're
It's
all
okay.
20
Where'd you
minute
find this at?
episodes. I watched this a long time ago. So I'm not sure off the top of my head where you can watch it now. I think I've seen it on either Hulu or Netflix recently, but I'm sure it is pretty easy to find.
Okay, I'm out there searching for it now.
But yeah, that's the one that we will, I believe, end up doing for this next week.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
We already did housekeeping and all of that. I don't have the social media stuff to pop up at the end here, but nonetheless, Melissa, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. Oh, I just found it on Hulu under the Terror in Resonance title.
Perfect. I thought it was on one of those. On Hulu. Go watch it on Hulu then. So your sorry, can you mention your social media stuff one more time?
Okie doke. Yeah, it's Twitter and Instagram. That's Wilkywit, WILKYWIT.
Perfect. And you guys can find me at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want updates with this show, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. And you guys can always find us on our website, thewhatnauts.com. There you go. We will see you guys next week. This has been episode 53 of the Whatnauts Review Show. Adios, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching that episode of the Whatnauts Review Show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please go subscribe to our channel up here. You guys can catch more videos up there. And check out this one down here. I think that's going to be our most recent upload. Go check it out. Gracias.